Hey,
We're back.
everybody. In case you were watching earlier, we've had to restart. And we're just.
What happened then?
Uh-oh. Sorry, everybody.
Boy, the fan mail's gonna kill us.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Tony. I'm here with Sam and Keith. And we're ready to do this tonight. And we're going to talk about Snook. Before I get started with Keith Plant, who is our guest speaker tonight, we're going to kind of just keep him in here the whole time. We're going to talk about Snook. He's on the board at the Stewart Rod and Reel Club. We're glad to have him here. He's very kind and gracious for us when we visit over to his club, and we wanted to pay back a little bit to him, and he's got some of his club members here with us tonight, so we're excited for that. And a couple of things, again, we're thinking about our friends and family and our partners on the West Coast who've been affected by Ian. It's a crazy storm, something that we've really never seen before. But we are helping out as much as we can. And if you go to the Sundance Marine USA website, you can click on the link that comes up on the front page, and our parent company, One Water, is providing assistance, and 100% of the proceeds of money that's donated will go to the recovery. So please go there, and also the local Captains for Clean Water. They've been doing some great work as well, and I've been following them through Ed Zayak's posts and on Instagram, and they're helping out a lot. So you can contact them through. What's the best way to get through to them? Through the Instagram.
For
Captains,
Ed or
for
Captains of Clean Water, just go to the website, Captains for Clean Water, and they've got several
Drop-off points?
Drop-off points
Right,
where you can drop off. And they need stuff like insect repellent, water, of course, but I know I donated some clean clothes, like T-shirts, underwear, stuff like that. Tidy wipes, they don't have any running water. That kind of stuff that you don't really think about. And, of course, charcoal grills, all that stuff. They don't have any way to cook. It's really a tragic deal over there. We know so many people on Pine Island and all Fort Myers. It's a bad deal. So anything you can give will be appreciated.
Yeah, and if you go to the websites, they've got, I'm sure if you go to the Captains for Clean Water, they've got some items that, they probably listed what they need.
Or contact DOA. DOA is a distribution point or a gathering point.
And that's for you local guys here in the, Martin County area. And Palm Beach, I think, too, right?
In Palm Beach, yes.
So we've got, like I said, Keith is here, and I'm going to go over the boat show at the end.
Okay.
So I'm going to go ahead and let these guys talk about Snook and the mullet run, and, I was fishing out back here and hooked in a nice one right off my dock here. So I'm fortunate I get to sneak out of my office once in a while and catch fish right off the seawall. But these guys are running boats and charters, and, well, Sam's doing the charters. But I know that Keith is out there a lot. And what are you guys fishing with? Are you doing live bait, Sam?
I've been doing artificial because, I love live bait fishing, and I'm probably going to get in trouble about this, but live bait fishing can be hard on the fish population. You catch a lot more, but I love the challenge of the artificial bait. And I've got some notes here about the type of artificial baits I use. My favorite artificial bait is a spook. And I like it in the bone color. And, I fish it on 20-pound braid, 40-pound leader. You say, well, why are you fishing 20-pound braid? So I can throw it further. Cover more area with each cast. That's the trick to artificial, is covering the most amount of water that you can in the shortest amount of time. The second bait, my favorite bait, would be a running bait. Like if you have a lot of current, a topwater bait will wash out of the productive area sooner. So I like a running bait. And on my running bait, I use one bait. That's Missouri, crystal minnow, and black and chrome and blue and chrome. If you're throwing anything else, you're just trying to fool yourself. You know, that's what I like to throw, and I throw it on the same 20-pound braid, 40-pound leader. I have cut back on my leader a little bit because it just gives the baits a lot more action with that smaller leader. If you want to go to 50, that's but it won't be quite as active or lifelike if you go to a heavier leader. Shallow water, there ain't but one bait I could throw, and that's a DOA shrimp. And I throw it on same rig, and that's when the fish are shallow, up in the mangroves on a high tide. You know, when you can actually see fish busting up under those mangroves, and you can hear them busting up under them. Nothing makes a sound like a snook, you know, just a. And so that's when I go. But I do a little something different now than I used to do. I fish a weighted hook, and that's a hook with a weight on it, and that way I can skip it easier. And if I skip it too far, I don't get hung up in those mangroves with that, because you fish it Texas rig. And what I do with that Texas rig is I'll take that hook and I work it through that bait a couple of times to give it a good clean pathway. Just when you set that hook, that hook doesn't have to go through all that plastic. So I like to do that. I establish a little channel for that hook to go through. And of course, the live bait, I'm fishing, 50-pound leader, 40-pound braid, because the live bait has its own action. You don't have to worry about that. What about you, Popo?
Well, I'm more of a live bait fisherman. I love shrimp. I do real well with shrimp, and one of the things I do is I use basically an owner brand hook, a 1/0 or at most a 2/0, so I don't weight the live shrimp down. Mm-hmm. And I hook them, depending, either right in front on top through the horn without hitting the brain. This is actually a DOA shrimp. I love DOA also. Or if I use a jig head, I'll hook the shrimp underneath the chin and out the head. Mm-hmm. With a slipper jig. I think it's called a slipper jig, where it's got the flat bottom, and it takes it down. So depending on the water depth and the current.
How heavy is that jig head?
That one's an 1/8 ounce.
1/8 ounce.
I use 1/8, 16th, and 3/8. The most is at 3/8. And it all depends on the current and the water depth. And I always use these type of jig heads so they don't get caught on the bottom, and it pulls right. A lot of people hook them from the rear. They bite off the last section of tail and hook them through the rear, and that's fine because technically shrimp swim backwards. They kick backwards. So when you bring it in, it's more natural. But I've had good luck always hooking it in the front. I'm pretty specific, same as you, 40-pound leader, 20-pound braid, always. That's always what I use, even on docks. But with the current mullet run, I've kind of changed a little bit in some deeper water near the inlet, Sailfish Flats. With moving water, I went to live mullet, 6-inch, 8-inch live mullet, and I went to a circle hook. And I'm not a circle hook kind of guy. I like that hook set, and to confuse them and get them out of docks, because I dock fish a lot. But in the deeper water, I'm using circle hooks with what they call a Jupiter rig. The hook, 18 inches a leader, swivel, 18 more inches a leader with a 1 ounce or 2 ounce lead weight, and another swivel to hold it in the middle. And that way, I cast it off the stern of the boat, let it get to the bottom, and that live bait can swim around a little bit. I use live liner reels, so I activate the live liners. That way, when a fish picks it up, they start running. The circle hook hooks themselves, and then I shut the reel and bring them in.
That's the same thing as a bait runner, isn't it? A live
Live liner, yeah.
Yeah,
Live
same thing
liners.
as a bait runner.
I actually have a bunch of original bait runners with me,
Mm-hmm.
and love them. But I went to the Penn live liners, but they're both great reels.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna stick with Shimano's. You know, one thing. I was fishing last week, and I noticed that I started off up in the North Fork, okay, and the water was really dirty, and it was really fresh, you know. And the snook don't mind the fresh water as much as the bait does. So, you know, the bait, I just don't find the bait in fresh water as I do in saline water, or water with a saline solution in it. So I started up there. It was rough. I mean, dirty, nasty, a lot of debris in the water. I came down I came down to Sailor's Return, fished the wall there a little bit, nothing. Picked up, went out to the front of Rufus's house, nothing. Went down to the inlet, past Manatee Pocket, went down to the inlet, and I noticed there was a bunch of terns in the water, diving in the water, and some pelicans, and that water was a lot cleaner, and it was just about every cast down there. But snook, some of them were oversized, and some of them were undersized, but I feel like the bigger ones were the females in there laying, and then the smaller ones were the snook, the male in there fertilizing the eggs. Because once a snook gets up to a certain size, he changes sexes, like a lot of these guys on TV now. he changes sexes, but that was God's intention. Now, I don't know about all that other stuff.
Last Wednesday over there, the mullet were so thick. There was a flats boat next to me, and the mullet, literally a dozen mullet, jumped into the flats boat. They were thick. And actually, there's redfish up there now, which I haven't seen a redfish in 2 years.
Man, that's fantastic. I haven't seen redfish.
But just a warning, because you know, Popo, redfish are closed. St. Lucie River, Indian River, all the way up to the Mosquito Lagoon.
Yes.
It's closed permanently.
Permanently, till they notify us that you can, they open it back up.
I wish they would stock them like they do on the West Coast.
I do too, man. You can't tell me that if they put in, say, they put in 10,000 redfish fingerlings a year for 4 years, that our redfishing wouldn't be good again. You can't tell me that.
Florida International University used to do it down at Flamingo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really helped the redfish fishing. But I guess they're more worried about busing illegals than they are our redfish. So, I am a conservative guy. I've got an opportunity here on TV or on the internet. Let me tell you something. We've got to get back to basics in our country. Common sense. Gee whiz.
Let's just go fishing.
I'm gonna take this opportunity. Common sense is the key. Even with fishing, common sense is the key. Okay, I'll shut up.
All right, so I'm gonna.
Yes, sir.
Your artificial, you make the Texas thread. What color way do you like to use on that, and what size hook do you like to use?
I used a weighted 2/0 hook on the shrimp, and you know what I'm saying about the weights on the hook shaft.
Yeah, I know that.
And I use several different colors. I like that natural color with the gold glitter. I like the glow shrimp, and if I'm in an area when the water looks a little bit brackish, I'll go with a red glitter. Red glitter. And if it's real muddy, like it is now, I don't know how the river is today, but like it was, I'll fish one with a chartreuse tail. Yeah. Give him a target. Yeah.
I like root beer.
Yeah, I don't know about Luke yet.
Well, I think I'm going to disagree with you on a different technique when you're throwing artificial plugs,
Mm-hmm.
especially for you guys that fish at night. You might fish these bridges, and you always see on the shadow line, you see obviously the fish that's where they're hanging out, right? Tarpon, snook, they're waiting for that. They're ambushing those mullet that are swimming through. The mullet don't typically stick around there, so they're on their way somewhere, either in or out, depending on what the tide's doing. And these fish are waiting to bust them. So what I've learned from an old local here, and when I moved up here 24 years ago, Bomber A, the big Bomber A, you can do, I like the 2-hook ones. Nice and slow.
A Bomber A is a good bait, except it has a lot wider wiggle.
It does, but the intent is to reel that almost to where it's
Suspended.
almost to where it's the tail. You know how a lure, it's a floating lure, it'll come up, the tail will kind of just below the surface. You want it going that slow. I mean, literally, you can't. And especially if there's current, it's almost hard to get it to go that slow.
Mm-hmm.
You'd think that that's too slow. But it's not. You're slow. When you think you're going slow, slow down even more. It's crazy, and I didn't believe it.
What color Bomber?
The white with the red head, or all white or silver.
Red on the head means dead in the box.
Black, yeah. The black and silver one. I mean, it's all about just that thing, because they're targeting these mullet when they're in there, right? Especially as we get later in the season, the mullet are bigger. So as we get to cooler weather, these fish move up and they stay. They move up the river and the bridges, and they're there, right? Because they're in the deep holes if it gets cold. But they're eating, so they're waiting to ambush those, and those mullet are bigger. So when they see that thing moving slow, they eat, and it's amazing. Like I said, came from down South Florida, and we fished totally different for snook, mostly live bait. But this guy he would crush him. He would outfish me, And then I started to figure it out.
I have the DOA silver mullet, and I do the same thing with it, and I keep it suspended just below the actual mullet schools to kind of separate it, because there's so many mullet they're looking at. They want to go to the slower moving lower one, and that DOA bait buster in mullet color, it's about 4-6 inches. I have one back.
The one with the weight in it.
The one right behind me. It's on a Crowder rod.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's black and silver.
Yeah, and I've been crushing that in the tarpon with it.
Mm-hmm. Tarpon love that bait buster.
Yeah.
And now they've got a new heavier head than a bait buster that you can actually swim a little faster and it'll stay deep.
Huh.
So it's a new. Yes, sir. Flaretail hawk is good. Yeah.
A lot of guys, that's all they use.
That's all they use.
They're just running that. That's also a real slow, down along the bottom.
Yeah.
Just barely, moving that thing across the bottom.
That's what I always.
I cast it just past the shadow line and just let the current bounce it off the bottom. And they call them either red tail hawks, flare hawks.
Flare hawk.
Yeah, but they're all the same. It's basically a lead jig head with a bucktail jig, but fairly heavy.
It's expensive when you lose 6 in the night.
Yeah.
It's cheaper.
But with a man with your kind of money, Jerry, it's trivial.
Hey, listen, it's cheaper to buy fish at the fish market than own a boat, but it's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
My wife didn't buy that argument.
Yeah.
She still wants to go to the fish market. Anyways, so what did you catch this week? I mean, you were fishing, right?
Yeah,
Did
yeah.
anything big?
We got 7 snook on last Wednesday, and like I say, we got a 22-inch redfish, which is the first redfish I've seen in 3 years.
That was down here?
By Sailfish Flats, yeah.
What'd you catch your redfish on?
A mullet with a circle hook,
Mm-hmm.
3/0. All my hooks are small. People think you need big hooks. Big hooks weight the fish down. Little hooks work. These thin wire ones, you got to be careful when you de-hook because you bend them. But my buddy today got 5 redfish in the same spot. One of the guys in the audience.
See, that's more impressive. Catch
Raise your
one
hand.
here and there.
I'll be following you.
I saw him.
It's funny. My buddy came in from
I'll be
fishing
following you.
and
He was in my spot.
told me, and I was going out to check that spot, and he was there with another guy from Pembroke Pines Police, and they were fishing there. And I told them, back up a little bit, you're in the wrong spot. And then they caught fish. And he said, yeah, some other guy was just here. I said, oh yeah, Green Pathfinder, Marathon Mike. So it was kind of funny. But he knows the spot. He won't tell you though.
We caught, it was a few years back, one of the dock guys, we fished out here, you know. I've caught little redfish around here. I have a photo of this somewhere on my phone, but this guy caught a 34-inch redfish.
Wow.
Right here.
Oh.
I mean, we let it go. He was holding it, and it was, I mean, I couldn't believe it when he yelled at, he was, hey, come check this out, you know. I'm like, no way.
It's not fair to fish out here, though.
I used to every summer get a dozen a week. But again, it's been 2 or 3 years since I've seen a redfish.
Yeah.
But, you know, evidently they're back because they were getting them today. I got one last week.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah. And the closure just started.
My favorite color for redfish is something. It's got to have gold on it somewhere.
Gold spoons are good
Gold
for redfish.
spoons,
Yep.
gold shrimp, something with gold on it somewhere.
Sounds like my wife.
Yeah.
She wants gold.
Well, she deserves it.
Thank you.
One thing I wanted to bring up is the other day when I was in the inlet, I caught those fish, and you could see the birds working them, but I actually started trolling. My trolling motor went dead because the current was so strong in there. So what I was doing is actually trolling at the end, and they were hitting it just as well. I mean, and you could see the birds all the way out the inlet, off the southern point of the
The jetty.
Jetty.
On the beach jetty?
on the beach jetty. Yeah.
That was where glass minnows when they hit?
Well, yeah. They were eating it. They were just.
I haven't seen glass minnows in a few years.
Oh, there's been a lot of glass minnows lately.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yep. Lately.
Be careful though with those undersized snook. Man, whatever you do not keep one. And they won't, used to, when they measured fish, they say, if you can make it go on your ruler, I'm not going to give you a ticket. But now, they have their own ruler. So you got to really be careful. You know, I mean,
It's kind of like lobster. We used to have the gauges, and some of the gauges weren't accurate.
we're accurate. Yeah.
That
Well,
only
even-
happens once.
Even with Sam, even with the overslot snook, you know, the overslot snook, you know, measure them, but please treat them right.
Yeah.
You know, don't lip grip them and hang them for pictures. I'm into pictures, and I have a boga grip. Support their belly, because otherwise their organs drop, and within a week or two they're going to die. So please support them. The overslots are your breeders, and that's why they have a
Yeah.
strict slot limit of 28 to 32 inches. So you know you don't deplete the babies.
The big ones are the females.
Yeah, and they're the breeders.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
They
the bigger
want
they
big
get,
fish.
the better the gene pool is. So
Yep.
yeah, so you know that's where they came up with this study. Like Sam says, it's between 28, 27, 26 and 28 inches where they change
Oh,
over.
sex.
They'll change from male to female. That's why when you get out here in the summertime, you see all those little skinny 26 to 27, 28 inch snook, under 30s. Those are mostly males. They're all sitting there waiting to, you know, do whatever their thing is they do. The females are a little harder to catch usually.
You know what I've been catching a lot of? The hybrids. And they don't get as big. You'll never get a slot as a hybrid, but I've been getting a lot of the tarpon snook in the large scale fat snook.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's 5 species of snook.
Right.
So there's common, sword spine, tarpon, small scale fat, and large scale fat.
And large scale, but
Which one
they
of
all
those-
have the same slot limit.
One of them's called Cubans.
All of them are 28 to 32,
Right.
no
You'll-
matter what.
But
you
you'll
call
never
it.
find a hybrid at 28 inches, I don't
No.
think.
If you do, it's a record.
Yeah, exactly. They only get 24, 25 at most. But they're beautiful snook.
You usually only see them up. I've caught them, but only up the river. Like
Yeah.
you know, I fished a lot in the South Fork, and that's where we used to see it. You see those different instead of the common snook.
What about y'all? Y'all got any questions yet? I mean, let's get ask me a question. I'm pretty pretty.
He's got his whole page
I got my
full
whole
of notes.
page here
He's
full of
ready.
notes. And anybody? Yes, sir.
You ever had to walk at night and you can his hours too?
You know,
I see guys do it, but I don't see people catching them.
no, I haven't. I'm usually always fishing something that's subsurface at night. Subsurface at night.
You can catch it.
Yeah.
You can do it. So the thing is that what happens is they don't see you that well at night. So, you know, when you use that lure, they're missing it. They're hitting it, but they're going to miss it. I was just having this conversation. It's interesting that you bring this up with a friend of mine he lives over there by the Roosevelt Bridge. And this mullet run, he's been crushing it. He's been getting snook after snook, you know, in tarpon at night. And he's been throwing top water lures. And he learned to slow it down and basically let that fish find it. So there's different ways of doing that. You know, you can dog walk it, which is the least effective way, honestly, where you can just reel that thing across the top of the water and they'll hit it, or you pull it a couple times and let it sit and drift with the current, and then they'll pick it up.
Yeah.
But they miss it. That's why most of the times people, and it's hard to see, you know. I like top water because it's exciting when you see the bust, right? You know?
Mm-hmm.
So at night, it's just you're listening, and you don't know if they eat it or not until you feel them on your hook. But you can. It's just you gotta get a little finesse on there.
When you fish your mullet for the snook, do you do anything to the mullet? Do you trim his tail or do all
Well,
that stuff?
It depends. I always hook them like above the nose in the cartilage.
Yeah.
So when I pull them in, I don't drown them.
Right.
If they're really not playing fair, I will hook them in the tail so they swim away, put a little tension on one. But I have, a couple weeks ago, had a problem casting them under the dock. As soon as it hit the water, before I closed my bail,
It's what-
they were next to the boat.
Yeah.
So, and the snook would chase them, but not get them. So I did take, I got little paramedic scissors,
Mhm.
and I did trim the tails on them. It kind of gave it a little, one, they swam a little funky and more in circles, and they were like injured, and it increased the bite.
Yeah.
Definitely increased the
I've
bite.
done that too. Trim the tail on them. Well, they won't swim out from under that dock just as soon as you put them under that.
Yeah,
Or bridge pile and swim down on that bridge
bridge
pile.
piling.
But, you know, I do like hooking them in the tail. Probably 40% of the time, I hook them in the tail. That way they swim away from you,
Yep.
and they swim deeper.
I do that definitely offshore, hook them in the tail.
Mm-hmm.
But I cast a lot under docks, and when you reel them in, if they're hooked in the tail, the water's going through the gills backwards, you drown them.
Brown, yeah.
But mullet are pretty resistant, a lot better than, pilchards or greenies.
Your cartilage hook is through the mouth. And
No.
Oh,
Yeah, sometimes I'll do that if I miss and rip, but no, it's across the nose, the nostril,
okay.
almost in the eye sockets.
Like we hooked them, Jerry.
like we hook the
Yeah,
gills.
yeah.
You know,
Like we hooked them.
You'll know you got it because I actually, even though these are cutting point tips, I have to work that hook in and fight it to get it in.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's on there, it's not coming off. I hate if I buy bait because I can't throw a cast net. I hate throwing a bait off at $1 or $2 a bait. So it hurts.
It just takes a little practice.
Yeah.
I've seen them little old girls that wouldn't weigh 100 pounds throw a 10-foot cast net. It makes me sick.
Well, I'm trying to get down to 100 pounds, Sam, but I ain't there yet.
You ain't gonna make it unless it's all on your legs, though. You ain't gonna make it. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Questions? None?
Eric?
The mullet is thick, and they're just busting through it. I had a problem the other day. They were just going at it, no matter what I did or what I threw. It was a nice show, but I was not getting anything. What do you do when that happens? Should you try
What were you using for bait?
What?
What were you using?
I was using mullets, and then I actually started using just a top lure. I was trying to go fast, maybe I was getting too excited. They were just busting through it. It was just
Jupiter rig. Get your a Jupiter rig. Get your mullet under the school. make them an easier target.
A lot of times that's the case, and you'll catch tarpon and snook, and a lot of these fish are scavengers. They're down underneath, eating what's fallen. You know, lots of different stuff down there, depending on where you're at.
When they're thick like that, busting like that, I will throw a dead bait.
Yeah, they'll eat
Oh
it.
yeah.
Because when
Let it
they're
sit,
smacking
or you
those
drag it
baits,
back, or just let it-
Oh, that's the
just
point.
sit it- sit
Throw it out there, and maybe once you get it's been out there, you know, pop it up off the bottom where it's more visible. But I will throw a dead bait.
yeah, because
Just
they're
dead mullet, just boom.
Yeah. Well, I don't fish much mullet. I fish a lot of pilchards, a lot of greenies. But I don't fish them big. I mean, I see people throwing greenies that big under them docks. You know, they got a
Don't throw the heads
yeah.
on the mullet.
Yeah. Do what, Jerry?
You use a mullet head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
cut it in half.
Step on it,
Yeah.
crush the head, gives all the
I caught a
oils.
lot of tarpon like that.
Yeah, and redfish can't resist the mullet head.
Eric, if you use a lure, you know, use either a twitch type that's
Yeah,
suspending,
the top one is just-
or a top water and just real slow, you know, because everything else is moving really fast.
Yeah.
Those mullet are swimming, you know, they're freaking out, you know, they're all kind of going all over the place, and the fish are trying to target on one. And if yours is like he says, if it looks different, if it's moving slower, they're gonna focus in on it. If it's dead, dropping down under the school, they're gonna eat it, you know. So, and that's a lot of times that's tarpon that pick that up, you know. The snook will eat it too. I think the tarpon hook ratio is probably higher on the dead ones under the school.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a question online.
We have a question online.
Kate has asked, what size sinker do you use on the Jupiter rig?
Depends on the current. The questions, you know, what size sinker I use on the Jupiter
Thank
rig.
you, Hank.
And it depends on the current. Anywhere from an ounce to 2, maybe, I guess 3 ounces if I have to. But the key to a Jupiter rig is only 18 to 20 inches a leader, 18 to 20 inches where the lead is. If you go much more, the bait's going to circle around and make a big mess.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I laughed, I used to make them longer, and I always get wound up, and my buddy never got wound up. So,
Have a sliding egg sinker.
yeah, sliding egg sinker.
But it
Slide
only
back.
slides is 18 inches because you got a swivel
Right.
on
On
each
each
side.
Got a
end.
swivel on each end, but it is an egg slider.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
When you buy a rod, let's say swing, do you change the hooks?
I'm sorry. Say,
Do you change the hooks when you buy?
You take the trebles off and put singles on.
I like a red hook. If I don't do anything else, I'll change the back hook. Yeah, but I will change both hooks. You know, and if you straighten out one of those true turn treble hooks, you've got way too much drag. Yeah, but
Well, Rapala makes the single hook lures.
Yeah.
They do make the single hook lures. I've got a few of them. They're actually really good. I mean, in terms of drawing the strike, but they are the hook ratio is a lot lower.
Mhm.
I throw one out here, and you know I get hits, and you know it's not like a treble hook. I miss them a lot. And I try to figure it out. And I'm like, well, what am I doing wrong here? But I don't know if it's letting them get it in their mouth more, because when you tend to jerk it away from them too soon. They don't get hooked as easy as they do on a treble. So there is a lower ratio hookup.
if I had to make a choice, rather than bigger hooks, I'd go sharper hooks. That's what you got to do. And if those hook points get turned, change them out, man. If they get rusty, change them out. If your leader gets frayed that far in front of your lure, cut that leader and retie. Because not only is it weaken it. Sometimes I get confused. Weaken it,
So do we.
but it makes it a lot more visible.
Use a nickel plated hook.
I will use a nickel-plated hook. I don't really use them that much anymore. I mean, I like that red hook.
It's always good to keep a small file. I always had a file with me in my bag. Small file. You don't need a big one, just a little file, because as Sam says, sometimes that tip, that point of that hook will you can't. It's almost not noticeable.
Mhm.
If you look close at it, you'll notice that the tip is bent a little. It could be from hooking a dock, from whatever, and all you got to do is take a file and run it across there a couple times, and it'll straighten, it'll take that little edge off of that tip.
As long as you use that nickel hook with a copper wire.
We got another question?
Bobber on the.
Wait, I want to expand
Mackerel.
on what Sam said. When he said about trimming the leader up a little bit, that's why I pretty much use a 3.5 foot leader. That way, it gets messed up and you have a short leader, then you're throwing that leader away and putting a new leader on. Well, I have a 3.5 foot leader. It gets frayed. I cut it and I can move it up and move it up, and I keep moving up after every 2 or 3 fish as it gets frayed, so I'm not wasting a whole leader, because this is all I use is this Momoy Diamond Pink 40-pound fluorocarbon. That's $48 right there for 100 yards. It gets expensive. So, like I say, I start with a big piece, and I keep trimming it up, like Sam said, when it gets frayed at the edges.
What's your knot when you're tying 50 pounds?
Well, I don't use 50-pound. The only time I use 50-pound is for Spanish mackerel, and I'm the worst at knots, so I use a loop knot, but I cinch it up so they don't have 2 things to bite through. I know loop knot and uni knot, double uni. That's all I know.
We have another question
Yes.
from
Ron.
Ron.
Ron asked, what is your favorite presentation for fishing snook on the docks?
Ooh.
Mine is to try throw past the target and bring it down.
Ron's out there.
Where's
Ron's
Ron?
question was the presentation
Ron?
around the docks.
Raise your hand, Ron.
No,
No, he's
he's
trying
on the TV.
Hey, Ron. I don't see you. Where are you? No, what I try to do is anytime I'm throwing a artificial lure, I want to throw past my target. And that's the reason that when you're, the heavier the bait, the harder it is to skip. Okay? So if I'm really if I'm in a shallow water situation or I'm having to throw under a dock, skip it under a dock, I will throw past my target and then work it back, to my target, throw past my target.
Now, I take a live shrimp and do the same thing, but on a dock which is shallow water, I use a split shot about 12 to 18 inches in front of the hook, throw the live shrimp as far as I can under the dock, let it sit, and then slowly bring it back, to the dock area, because they're in the shade. They like the shade. They like the shadow lines. And if there's not a lot of current moving, you're going to laugh at me. Even with a DOA shrimp, I'll use a popping cork. Cast it up under, let it sit. If I don't get a hit, I pop it. And I have a unique technique. When I pop it, I pop to the right, and I go right back. Because if you pop it, you make the noise, the snook looks up, but you popped it and you moved it, and now the bait's gone. So when you pop it, don't just pop it. Pop and go back. So when it comes up, makes the noise, and goes back into the same spot. And that's really successful for me.
You spend a lot of time dreaming about that, don't you?
I found on the docks that, like Keith says, is the fish, most of the time, I've done the fly fishing around the docks, and that's fun. And a lot of times you'll see these smaller fish, even trout and snook, they'll all be, they're typically smaller. They're in the light. They're eating whatever's swimming through there, little shrimp, little bait fish. You can tell, they're chasing these little things around, and especially this time of year. What I found, though, is that on some of these docks, especially where if you have a row of docks that are all lit up, those fish, the bigger fish, are not at the docks. So when you throw your lure up there or whatever it is you're fishing with, do not. A lot of people take the habit of, like, once it gets out of that light, they'll just reel it in real quick and recast it. You let that lure do its thing all the way to the boat, and make sure you're not too close to that dock. You want to be outside of that shadow line, because that's really where the fish are.
That's
especially
where the fish
bigger
are,
ones.
in that shadow line.
So you want to have your boat, you don't want a trolling motor right up to 10, 15 feet from the dock, because you're in the light. You've scared all the fish that are right there where you should be fishing. So you need to stay back from those docks, and fish them, and don't be afraid to come back and fish a dock again, even though you don't get a hit, because Sometimes you just didn't cover enough of the water.
Or it might not have been feeding time. The current might have been.
That's the
nothing
other
on it.
thing is they'll turn on for 30 minutes and then they're done. It's crazy. If you see fish around the dock and they're not eating, just give them a few minutes. They'll start eating again. So. what do you
All
think,
right,
Sam?
boat show.
Yeah, we got to finish up here. So, thanks for everybody for coming. We're going to finish up, but we've got some information here about Fort Lauderdale Boat Show, 26th of October, Wednesday through Sunday. Sundance will be there. One Water will be there with all of our brands that we represent, and pretty much all hands on for that show. I will be working at the Everglades Boats booth, which is one of the brands we sell here. We also sell Parker. We have Barletta pontoons, and we have Regals. So we'll have the Regal booth is huge, and they'll have most of their line of models. Everglades will have every one of their models. Barletta will have quite a few boats, but I'm not sure how many at this point. But and then Parker will also have boats, and we have leftovers of these boats too. Especially the pontoons and Parker, we have some 2022 models come in. We're making great deals. They're being discounted, unlike any discounts we've seen for the last couple of years. So we are pushing boat, to make deals. And so if you're looking for a boat or looking to change out, we have fishing pontoons, which Keith and I discussed earlier. They are set up with a live well. You can put a trolling motor on them, a power pole, and they've got 2 captain's chairs. They're really comfortable. For you guys that like to, don't really want to go out and stand all day, these boats are really cool. They've got
It's a great platform to
2
fish.
big captain's chairs right at the back of the pontoon. And you
Wide
can sit there,
below 'em.
you can have the wives and the kids or whoever up in the front. They can have their own thing going out in the shade, and you can be fishing back there, and the live well's right there for you, and you've got a tackle station with rod holders between the 2 seats. It's pretty cool. They're really nice. If you're interested in seeing them, you guys should come check them out. We also have some Parkers, which are set up for center console for fishing. We just got a 21-foot sport cabin in, so that boat just arrived. It's a 2023. But we've got boats, so come up, come see us, come to the show. If you want to come make an appointment, reach out to us. We can set you up. Like I said, I'll be at Everglades, and we'll be presenting a brand new model at the Everglades show, a 28 footer. They're new 285, so it's a pretty cool boat.
And don't forget, every one of those, well, not every one, but a lot of those new boats have got a trade-in. So that's the reason you need to talk to somebody when you're just looking at them. Talk to a salesman and say, well, that's a little bit out of my price range. I'm looking for something, a little bit cheaper. And he can make you a good deal on a used boat. And nowadays, with these 4-stroke engines, hell, they're good for what, 2,000 hours?
More than that, you just got to take care of it.
Yeah.
More than that.
Mine's 1,000. No, I try to take care of my boat.
So, anything else from you, Keith? We appreciate you being
Well,
here.
Thank you, Tony. And if anybody wants to come out Thursday night at 6 o'clock at Dolphin Bar on Indian River Drive, we have the Stewart Rod and Reel Club, oldest inshore fishing club in the Treasure Coast. 6 p.m. Dolphin Bar.
Yep.
you can have
And it's
great
a good
program.
meeting. It's not boring.
Yeah, great
They
location.
move right along.
You guys are going to have...
We have Captain Kyle from Bucket List, an offshore captain, and we have Captain Wink out of Jupiter. He's won multiple fishing awards and tournaments.
Yep.
Is our guest speakers.
So 6 o'clock at the Dolphin Bar right here on Indian River Drive. Great spot. Come in and have dinner. It's $22 for dinner. What is it?
Well, inflation, we're up to 24.
$24.
But it includes
it's a great meal.
entree, salad,
Yeah.
Drinks, everything, tax
So
tip.
again, thank you everybody. Thank you, Keith. Thanks
Thank you.
everybody for coming in, and for the guys out there that sent in the questions. We appreciate that. Everybody have a great October and catch some fish. Tight lines, everyone.
Let's go fishing.